As we examine the genre of poetry, there are many different subgenres that we must be aware of. There are complexities that require a great deal of care and understanding in order to make the best observations in the text. With the Psalms Explorer tool that we're going to look at today, we can work towards organizing the information so that our observations use that best data that's available to us. So to begin, we're going to open the Psalms Explorer tool. So it's just like the Proverbs Explorer, just click on Tools and it's on the far right. Again, if you don't see it, it's under All Interactive Resources. So then Psalms Explorer. I'm going to close out of the library. I'm going to make this full screen. So right away, we can see that this is much prettier. And we'll talk about this in a second. Let's start off, we're going to look at some of the things on this left menu here. So right away we see that genre is represented. We see, if we hover over, we can see the different genres are different colors. If we go down, we can actually sort by book, and you'll see if I highlight over book 1, you'll see that some over here on the right are highlighted and some are not. And so we can see by book, we can see by genre, we can see by attribution or author. There are 74 that are attributed to David, and so we can see that David has some from all the different categories. We can see themes, we can see structure, some are chiastic, some are strophe, some are acrostic. We can even see tags. We can see all these different things, just like in the Proverbs Explorer, but here we have the representation of the book, which is extremely useful, and the representation of the genre, which is very useful. On the top here, so we have this beautiful circle here, and a couple things. So the color represents the genre. The size of the circle actually represents how large it is, and so even if you couldn't read the 119 here, just looking at how large that circle was, I bet most of you would know what that was right away. We can organize these by structure. We can just put them in order. You'll see this, I'm doing screen capturing, and so this tool kind of goes slow. We can order by author. We can also, and this is very important, we can organize by book. So we just talked about in Proverbs how if you want to make observations based on the collection first before you look on the whole of Proverbs level, and you want to examine each book independently of each other before you examine on that level, the Psalms Explorer has that option built into it. Now, the one drawback of the Psalms Explorer is that you can't do a direct search out of here. And so if you want to, like we just showed in Proverbs how to do a search for all of the verb senses in a collection. To do that in Psalms, you still have to type some things into reference ranges. The Psalms Explorer does not have an easy way to search out of it yet. Hopefully they're working on that. And so I want to show you how we can use the data that we've got from here, and we can use that to make searches. So I'm going to click on the magnifying glass. And now, for today, we're going to search on the clause level, but first we need to make our reference range. So we're going to do a new reference range, and we need to do a range title. I've actually included a bunch of different reference ranges for you in this lesson. I'm pulling up my Word document of it. So right away we have Psalm Book 1 chapters 1 through 41. And so I'm going to do a Psalms 1 through 41, and then I'm going to call it Psalm Book 1. And I would encourage you to just go through and do all of these. There's a number of them there because these are good baselines to have. Now, when you put this in, it'll give you the same ability to search that we just looked at in the Proverbs collections, or to just search however you want inside that book. But one thing here, I've given you these genres here of Psalms, Thanksgiving, Wisdom, Royal, Hymn, Praise, Lament. If you want to actually search through one of those genres, you have to do one more step. And this next step would be, so if we have Psalm Book 1 is chapters 1 through 41. If I wanted to search through Psalm Lament in Book 1, I would need to go, and the first lament is in chapter 3. I would need to highlight here, and you can do this. You'll have this in your Logos. You also have a Word document available. I would need to highlight chapters 3 through 41. And that way it covers what is in Psalm Book 1, but doesn't cover any of the other stuff, because if I want to examine the Psalm Lament, I need to examine it first inside one book or one collection before I start looking out. And so I'm going to copy that, and then I'm going to make a new reference range, and then I paste that in, and so now I've got Psalm 3, 4, the comma is how it separates things, and then I'm going to call this Psalm Lament Book 1, and I'll hit save. So now I can search, I'm essentially searching Lament Book 1. So if I click on those, I know it goes a little slow because I'm screen capturing, but I'm now able to do a search of just these psalms. And so that's very cool, because I'm able to really hone in on what I'm searching. And so now we're going to do this search. We're in clause. In clause, we're going to search for a subject. So lament is sorrow, grief, sadness, or that's what I think of when I think of it. And so I might wonder, so these psalms are, if we look back at the Explorer, they're written about David, and he's lamenting. I might wonder, okay, if these are all laments, I wonder what David thinks about God in this instance, or what David says about God as he's lamenting. And so to do that, I would like to see the verbs that God is the actor of, where God is the subject. And so if I am in a clause search, and I type in subject, God, and then I don't want to just hit enter. I want to select subject, God, where it has the little person on the far right there. That means it's a Bible sense. And I click on it and then hit enter. Make sure you're in Psalm Lament Book 1. If you just do subject God, I don't think your computer will ever give you results because of how expansive that is. And but so now when I have this, I already have verb up. I'll get rid of that. But now I have all of the instances, and you can see here it says there's 322 results in Psalm Lament Book 1 where God is the subject. And I can see here subject, God. And the thing we're going to look for, there's some different verb options. And if I scroll that one out, that's actually verb morphology. I want to look for verb, where we see to hasten, to look. We see these different verbs that God has done, and I'm going to do that same Alt or just drag click if you're on a PC and let go. And now right click and collapse all. Now if I look into collapse all, so if I look now, if you click on the verb, it will adjust how they're ordered, and I'd like to have it from largest to smallest for now, and then I'll collapse all. But now if I look, I can see that where God is the subject, the most used verb in Psalm Lament Book 1, where God is the subject, is hear or listen, and then favor, to save. And this, again, if you just read that, that's not going to get you to your observation point that you need to be at in order to really study the text. But this starts to give us an overview, a macro view of what's happening here. As we look at this, we'll start to ask different questions. If I open this up, I can still sort by reference inside of it. And so when I'm in, I can see what does David say to the Lord. If I hover over, I click on Psalm 4, moving real slow right now, and I think it's because I have the Psalm Explorer tool up and I'm recording. But I can start to see, David says, be gracious to me and hear my prayer. I can start to see in these searches, I can start to see patterns, and when I see these patterns, I can start to look and say, how are these consistent? What are the things that David's communicating about God? Who is God? How is God revealing himself through these laments, through David's psalms? And there's still a lot of work to do, and in our next chapter we're going to look at how to actually work on a closer level for observation on an individual psalm, but this starts to help us ask better questions, make better observations on the 5 books of Psalms level, but then also on the whole book of Psalms level. So I hope this was helpful.